This video is going to talk about deviation in Tableau and also a little bit about the theory of it. So deviation is usually when we want to present something, one number is compared with some other number, generally some sort of a baseline. So year over year sales, budget versus actual, etc. And we're going to show lots and lots of different ways to show deviation over the next couple of weeks. But there is an overarching rule when we're talking about deviation. And the key thing is that you must always express the deviation against the reference value. So we have to show the reference value and we have to show the deviation. But one thing we don't want to do is this example, where we're showing a column, for instance, for budget and another column for the actual, which is a very typical way that you often see this, where you'll see one number compared with another. Now, thinking back to our idea about cognition and the fact that we're trying to create a visualization that allows users to better perform cognitive evaluations, if this visualization is about deviation, why are we showing the reference value and the value being compared to it instead of the actual deviation? So we have to show the deviation directly. And so by that, what we mean is this example, where we're actually representing the deviation itself. Now, you might present both on a dashboard. You might present these columns where you have the different values, but what if the dashboard or the visualization is primarily intended to discuss the level of deviation from the reference value, then you want to actually represent in the visualization the level of deviation from the reference value. So something like this. So let's build this real quick. You're going to do something very similar to this in the tutorial. All right, so I'm in the coffee chain data, which you'll have access to online under the tutorial file, or actually under this week 5 file, it's there. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to calculate the deviation because let's just calculate the deviation in sales. So I have a sales, which is my actual, and I have my budget, which is the reference value. So let's create a calculated field. And so to do this, I'm going to create the sales versus budget deviation. And it's a real simple calculation, putting in parentheses sales minus budget sales, close parentheses, divided by budget sales. You have to make sure that you put the parentheses there because the order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, it's in effect here. And so now I have the budget sales, and that visualization that we were showing was in the columns product, and the deviation, sales versus budget deviation in the rows. And you can see here that I've made something very different from what was in the slides. I think in the slides I used profit. So here's the sales deviation, okay? But note also that this is for all years. So maybe we want to do something a little bit differently. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to drop in date into filters. I'm going to choose years, discrete years, sorry. And I'm going to go ahead and show the filter just so we can look and see how it looks a little bit different. So here's 2012, here's 2013. So those graphs don't look a whole lot different. Let me go ahead and do the same thing for profit. Profit versus budget deviation. And it's going to be open parentheses, profit, close bracket, minus budget profit, close parentheses, slash. Okay, and we'll basically do the same graph. I'll duplicate it, and I'll take this one out, and I will drop this one in. And now we get the graph that's in the slides. everything is one color. We might choose to color these a little bit differently. Let's go ahead and just grab profit versus budget deviation and drop it onto color. Not real happy with that color scheme, so I'm going to go into color, choose edit color, and kind of use the typical red to green diverging legend that people assume that green is good and red is bad, at least in the United States. Be very careful when you use color for meaning in multicultural settings. You have to understand what colors mean in the culture you're presenting to. And this has kind of created that graph that is on the slide, except it's done the sum. And what we want to do for this is the average, okay? And that turns it more into what this percent look that we're going for. And I'm going to right click here and choose to format the axis and make it a percentage. There we go. Now, as I said before, this is all years. Let's look at see if profit looks a little bit different by year. 2012 profit was kind of bad. It was our first year, but 2013 is looking much better. In fact, it looks like all of the products are doing better. But what did we talk about before is that we don't want to make a viewer switch from here and say, okay, let me look at all those levels and look at all these levels and try to compare them themselves. So what could we do is we could actually add another level of detail so we could show 2012 and 2013 for each product. And let's just go ahead and do that. If I drop date in here, now I get year and all products and then the product. And so again, I'm kind of making you have to go from here over to here to compare. So if I just reverse that, Tableau's saying, well, it's time series, so they probably want a line. Well, I'll have to just switch it back to bars. And now I get kind of what we're looking at. So now I see the actual deviation that in 2012, Amaretto had a deviation from budget profit of almost 40%, but this year it was only, or in 2013, it was only 10%. All right, so the basic rules for deviation is the idea that show the direct deviation from the reference value. We will show this multiple times in the next few weeks, but I've shown you enough to get through the tutorial for this week, and this is the end of the hands-on for week 5.